Day one of training camp is in the books for the Carolina Panthers. Dave Canales, new head coach, spoke to the media on Wednesday, and the Panthers are also reportedly working out two veteran edge rushers. Will either one of them sign with the team? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. Why? Because tomorrow, the weekly Friday mailbag is finally back. So either at me or DM me right now to get your weekly Friday mailbag questions in for tomorrow's show. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We made it. Day one of training camp is in the books. Day two going to be on Thursday. Then on Saturday, back together Saturday across the NFL as all 32 teams are back at training camp. Plenty of players who are not at training camp or are at training camp and aren't on the field. Not here in Carolina. All of the players reported. All the players are out there. Some of them were injured, but still are out there. We'll get to that a little bit later on here on the show. At exciting times here in Charlotte. And please let me know. Anyone's going to training camp, let me know what you think about the setup there. Alex Zeitlow has been on the show a couple times with the Charlotte Observer, one of the two beat reporters alongside Mike Kaye. He went out the other day, had a nice video of the fan setup. Apparently, there's a setup for PSL owners, and there's a setup for just normal fans. You got to buy tickets and all that. I know a lot of those events are already sold out, but please, if you're going, let me know how it is. And also, my hope is I'll be out there in the coming days. So if you ever see me, say hello, and we can chat it up, of course, because it's obviously a big time here in Carolina. Going to have Fan Fest on at Clemson, TBD on whether I'm going to go down to that. So I'll let y'all know, but excited to have training camp here to be one step closer to the regular season. And Dave Canales, Panthers' new head coach, embarking upon his first ever training camp as a head coach in the NFL. Spoke to the media after day one and had some interesting things to say. He talked about how right now what they're trying to do is just recapture the work ethic. That's the big part of camp right now, is getting back into rhythm, people understanding each other, communication. That is something that is key. And I always wonder, when they get back, what are they trying to focus on? He told us on Wednesday that the first 8 practices are really when they get into their full install. So this week, next week, and then once they get closer to game week against New England, that's when you're going to start to see competitions. And I would think after the Patriots game, when they have that film of them playing against another opponent, and we'll see how many of the starters play and how long they play. But really, for a lot of the guys that are going to be at the back of the roster trying to make it, we're going to get a good understanding of where they stand and also just what the competitions are really going to be here in Carolina. So excited to see when all that gets worked out. He also talked about just the dynamic between Bryce Young and his receivers, like Deontay Johnson, talking about how Bryce really has to get used to how unique of a mover Deontay Johnson is. It's always funny how Dave Canales just describes guys that he's talking about on this team. He talked about a unique mover in Deontay Johnson. There was a nice social media clip out there that the Panthers fed you to get that hope back up, get that excitement back up with Deontay Johnson running a nice route, getting a reception there from Bryce Young. Should see a lot of that this season as long as the offensive line holds up. Deontay stays healthy, and of course, Bryce stays healthy and makes the right throws throughout the season. Adam Thielen, what's his role going to be? Played a lot of the slot role last year, didn't really have a lot of routes that went past 5 yards. Is that going to be the same case again this season? Dave Canales talked about how there's going to be a mix of different things of Adam, counting on his ability to win on the outside and inside, the versatility that he has, flexibility that they gives him. They're going to want to use him in a lot of spots this season, which is going to mean you're going to need a third guy to step up. And there was a question about Xavier Legette, who had his first day of training camp here in Carolina, had the hamstring issue. We're going to talk more about what he had to say about his first day. He was pretty critical of himself after day one with the Panthers in training camp. But someone asked, what's his timeline? How soon may you throw him out there? What's your plans for him? And Dave just said he's a massive receiver, explosive ability, can take it from a short catch all the way to the end zone, which we saw at his time last year, especially at South Carolina. Quote, I'm wide open to how quickly he can assimilate himself in this offense. I just want him to get better each day at a time. There's not going to be any limitations. When Xavier Legette is ready, he is going to be a big part of this offense. He may not be ready right now, and from what he had to say on Wednesday, certainly does not sound like he's ready, but he has the right mentality, and that is encouraging. Dan Morgan talked about on Tuesday, he likes the vibe here. A lot of the guys that they brought in have the right kind of mentality that they're looking for as they try to turn things around here in Carolina and build a winner. And Xavier Legette, from what I heard, and we're going to go over later on in the show, sounds like one of those guys, absolutely. But when he's ready to go, it's nice to hear that the coaching staff and Dave Canales in particular is just going to let him run free and be a part of this offense. And I'm excited to see whenever that happens. Some other updates. DJ Johnson, he missed practice with an illness on Wednesday. Canales said it's not that big of a deal. Just one of those things where they're not going to throw him out there. It's 90-degree heat. If you're sick, you don't need to be out there in the heat working out. So you're going to take some time to get him out there. But it's going to be important for him to be available, as right now the Panthers don't have Maury Barno. It may not have him for a long period of time. Not sure what role he's going to play anyways here this season at the edge rusher spot. Of course, don't have DJ Woonem, who's currently on PUP, likely going to miss training camp, and we'll see when he's available. DJ Johnson would be the one to step in there and be the starter. My assumption is that Jadeveon Clowney and Caleb on Chasen, as I didn't read any of the practice reports, I would assume those are the two guys that were the starters at the edge spot when they were just going through team drills, and they're not wearing pads. So it's not really that big of a deal. He was starting. Now, once the pads go on, it's going to be very important for DJ Johnson to be out there and for all the guys who are available right now at the edge spot to be out there as well. Entering into his first training camp, how did Dave Canales prepare? He said he spent time with Tony Dungy face-to-face, and he spoke, of course, Pete Carroll, who he spent over a decade with there in Seattle, and they told him that there's things that you just can't be able to anticipate and just be able to go with the flow. And Dave Canales is challenging himself to see all of this team, not just be on offense, go over, look at the defense, to be right there with the special teams as they're working on fundamental things that are important, that he's not just going to solely focus on offense. That's one of the questions that you would have for a coach who's being brought in specifically to call the plays. And I don't think Dave Canales is getting this job if, of course, he didn't do what he did the last 2 years of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield in Seattle and Tampa Bay, respectively, but also he wasn't coming in to call the plays. Clearly, David Tepper wanted that kind of offensive coach who could run his own offense. He did it last year for the first time as the OC in Tampa under Todd Bowles. Varied results when you look at the run game, the passing game, having Baker really turn it on, look like the Baker Mayfield we saw a couple years ago in Cleveland. And of course, having Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, that helps a lot. Now he's here in Carolina, building on that offense, having a second year of experience. He's going to have to also understand, I got to be a CEO at times and have to be in all those meeting rooms, get to know every single player on this roster. So love to hear about that. And a lot of questions that y'all have too. I'm going to have myself just about, what are you getting out of these first days when it comes to players in the trenches? What are you getting out of the offensive line? What are you getting out of the defensive line where they don't have pads on? And that's really when you can differentiate who's someone who can help you and someone who can't help you and who's going to be really your starters in those certain spots. We know offensive line-wise who the starters should be. Defensive line-wise, I think there could potentially be some questions there as far as the roles and who really is going to be starting right there next to Derek Brown this season. But Dave Canales said that first and foremost, communication is what he's looking for. He wants to hear them talking more than talk as much as he would like on Monday offensively, getting combinations the way that they need to be, getting their protections aligned, communication with the quarterbacks and the receivers. Talk about Bryce Young and Deontay Johnson, always trying to get on the same page there. Same thing with the trench play. One of those offensive linemen to communicate, one defensive lineman to communicate. That is important. And when you look at just a daily evaluation process, I love that Vast High Hurt of the Carolina Blitz asked this question: how do you evaluate it? Canales said that Staff evaluates the film after practice. They make sure that they're correcting their scheme, getting things right as they're going through the first 8 days of full install. Once again, they bring the players back together to watch the film. Then they start to introduce the next day's install. This is all in a day's time. So I practice in the morning, look at the film, correct whatever went wrong, show the players at that time. Then, all right, let's go out on the field again. We'll walk through it, show them the next day's install. And then when they come back in the morning, have meetings, they're expecting to just go out there and get right into it, saying, quote, they want to have reviews, not installs, once that next day comes around. And that next day is going to be on Thursday morning, once again, 9:30 a.m. at the Panthers practice facility there in Uptown Charlotte. Now, the Panthers, we'll see if they have any new players with them on Thursday. As Mike Kaye, the Charlotte Observer, reported that they are bringing in 2 veteran edge rushers to work out after practice on Wednesday. We'll talk about those players individually and whether they can help the Panthers and if any other moves are on the horizon here in Carolina, here in the middle of training camp. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Save up to 60% off buying the last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets of Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. On Tuesday, when meeting with the media ahead of Panthers training camp, Panthers general manager Dan Morgan stated that they're going to look to add depth at every position. When asked about the depth concerns that the media and fans have when it comes to the edge rusher spot and also at corner, and Morgan has already gone out and said what he would do as a Panthers, reportedly, according to Charlotte Observer beat reporter Mike Kaye. They're bringing in former Jets and Bengals pass rusher Carl Lawson and former Bears, Jags pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue to work out the Panthers later on this week. So, as we know, DJ Wonnum, he appears to be out all training camp right now on the physically unable to perform list, or PUP, with that partially torn quad from last year, suffered with the Vikings, missed all of the offseason program, and we're not quite sure when he will be available, although, of course, he's working hard to get back. If he's available week 1, that would be great. Not ideal, though, for a new player coming to this new defense and not really be out there for what is a critical time for a team where J.C. Horn, he was asked about this on Wednesday. Does it feel like you got like a new team? He said, yes, I feel like I'm on a brand new team, losing all of our defensive leaders. As you see Brian Burns leave, Frankie Louvu leave, Jeremy Chin leave, Dante Jackson leave. Only Shaq is back. Derek Brown's back. And of course, JC himself is back after missing a ton of time in his first 3 years as a Panther. Losing all those guys, not having a key piece, at least someone who's expected to be a key piece, and DJ Wonnum is not helpful for him. And of course, for the Carolina Panthers, Mari Barno likely going to be starting the season on PUP. If you just go back to last year, Austin Corbett tore his ACL. Different players understand that. Different people can recover different ways. I just don't really see that being a realistic possibility right now. Maybe it turns around and that's the case, but I don't see it. Now, looking at Carl Lawson, Yannick Ngakoue, 2 names that have been around the league that have had success in the league. Now, recently, one of them, Lawson, has really not been all that great. Ngakoue has had success, but he's bounced around the league a lot. So looking at both these guys individually, Carl Lawson last played with the Jets. He only played in 23 games with the Jets in the past 3 seasons. As soon as he signed, tore his Achilles right there in training camp in 2021, missed the entire season. In 2022, bounced back to play and started all 17 games with 7 sacks. So a really good bounce back for a player coming off of an injury like that. Last season, though, only played in 6 games, and the Jets had one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL last season. We saw it firsthand during joint practices and then in that preseason opener last year here in Carolina. He couldn't crack the lineup, only had 5 tackles, didn't record a single sack, a single quarterback hit, or tackle for loss. The problem for him was he began the season with a back injury and that had him with a reserve role, and he was mainly a healthy scratch throughout the season. You have to wonder, too, how healthy really was he with that back? As we've known, Marquise Haynes, he had the same issue last year, and we barely saw him. And when we did see him, he didn't have an impact. Same kind of case, Carl Lawson did not have an impact, and a back can be tricky. He's getting up there. I think he's about 29 years old now, heading to the season, has back, has had an Achilles. That is a player that you're not surprised is out here on the street as camp is opening up here in late July. Don't know if that's who I would be targeting. We can't sit here and act like the Panthers have the pick of their litter. There's something to consider that these guys going to want to come here too. And the Panthers only have so much salary cap room. Looking at it right now, the NFLPA's public salary cap report has Carolina with $6.7 million of cap room. And understand this, going to overthecap.com, the Panthers, and I saw it was somebody had put this out on Twitter. I think we talked about it yesterday, and they were pretty upset about the Panthers only having the 30th most cap space allowed right now, because of, you look at it, they don't have Burns, have Luvu, and yet there's all that cap space that they don't have. 46 million of it is caught up in dead money, according to Over the Cap. Von Bell, $9.8 million. Hayden Hurst, $9.8 million. Dante Jackson, $9.7 million. Bradley Bozeman, $7.2 million. Justin Houston, $3.8 million. DJ Chark, $3.1 million. And even Sam Franklin, who's on the roster right now, $1.2 million. Matt Corral, who's not even in the league, $400,000. Brandon Smith, $378,000. You just look at the guys they signed last year. Von Bell, Hayden Hurst, Bradley Bozeman, Justin Houston, DJ Chark. All of them didn't pan out, and this is the dead money situation. Now, they can do what they did last season with Justin Houston. He only signed a one-year deal, so you're probably wondering, why did he have that much dead money? The way that they structured the contract is they were able to push some of the cap hit down the road, which now the Panthers are paying for, and it's not like $3.8 million is that much. You would, though, like to have that money available to you right now, opposed to a player who also is out on the street right now, and I think unlikely to go somewhere and really play a massive role. So that's going to be something to consider as well, how much space and flexibility they really have. Now, having Grant Tillis here as the EVP of football operations, and now the guy who's going to be handling the salary cap and contracts, he can get creative. The Panthers can bring some of these guys in. I don't think they were going to be looking at him if they didn't think they could find a way to sign him. But money always is going to be important. And also just whether they have the salary cap space to go over that. Again, public salary cap report, NFLPA has them at $6.7 million. And looking at over the cap, they have them at $6 million. So right there in that $6.5 million, $6.7 million range. Not a lot of space, obviously, for this team. Well, it's not like they need a lot of space this season. Looking at next offseason is where you would really want to know, and actually looking at next offseason, not to get too ahead of ourselves, it says our team cap space is only $16 million. And there's ways to get more space. As we know, that's not the most encouraging thing as we head into the season. There's questions about why this team does not have more cap space. Getting back to it, though, Carl Lawson wouldn't necessarily be that interested in him because of the recent injuries. Yannick Ngakoue, he's a name that we brought up last year, having been in Indianapolis the season prior with Frank Reich. Although briefly, I thought he would have made a lot of sense for Carolina as they were looking to find an edge rusher. He instead goes somewhere else. He went to the Bears last season. He played and started in 13 games, only had 4 sacks. The 2 years prior, he spent in Indianapolis and Las Vegas and had 9.5 sacks and 10 sacks respectively. And that was something that really stood out to me. Now, Justin Houston also had a really good sack season. That was right there on par with Ngakoue. We also talked about Leonard Floyd, who decided to go to the Bills, who would have made sense as he had ties to Ejiro Evero and his staff, and that did not work out. Money, I would have thought, would have been the issue there, and Scott Bitter did allude to it, the Panthers' former general manager. And Ngakoue, I don't know what the issue was, why he didn't want to come here, but he didn't. And once again, he's a name that we're talking about. Now, he didn't even visit last season. The fact that he's going to visit, he's going to do a workout, is progress considering that the Panthers couldn't even get that done a year ago. And the one thing about him, though, is he's played on 6 different teams in the past 5 seasons. And whenever he signs this year, which he will, that'll be 7 teams in 6 years. Why can't this guy stick anywhere? And it seems to be the perception with him, and maybe not even perception, just the fact is he's not good against the run. Looking at Pro Football Focus, which is just one piece of the puzzle. His run grades are the past 3 seasons. 39.9 last year, 51.4 the year prior in Indy, 47.2 the year before that in Las Vegas. Not good at all. But here's the thing. Do you really need Yannick Ngakoue to come into Carolina and to set the edge, to be good against the run? I don't think so. What you need him to do is come in here and get after the passer and rack up those 9.5, 10 sacks like he did in those 2 seasons prior to last year in Indianapolis and in Las Vegas. That's what you need him to do, especially when you have Jadeveon Clowney. That's the good thing about swapping Burns out with Clowney, as Burns wasn't all that good against the run. And we didn't talk a lot about that, but if you watched, it was pretty known that he wasn't great in that aspect of things, but a better pass rusher than Clowney is. And Clowney talked about there's more of an art to it. But when it comes to stopping the run, it's a mentality. And he's not going to let someone just run over him. And Ngakoue has not had that mentality so far in the NFL, which is part of the reason why he's been on 6 different teams in the last 5 years, and perhaps in contract situations. Other things out there as well have led to that. Either way, the Panthers can't really be that picky. Now, they want to be, you want to have the right culture, get the right personalities in here, and I'm not sure he is that. I'm also not sure he's not. So we'll see how that works out. But having Clowney, having DJ Johnson, someone who Jadeveon Clowney brought up on Tuesday by name, him and Ngakoue as guys who can set the edge, that affords the Panthers to bring in really just a pass rushing specialist in Yannick Ngakoue if they're able to do it. So it makes sense for the Panthers to bring them in, but let's not have massive expectations after what we saw last year from Justin Houston, who I know was an older player, but still didn't live up to the $7 million starting money that they gave him last season. And you're going to think that's going to be a pretty good deal with whatever they can give him, plus incentives, and they can work it out cap wise, maybe let somebody else go. They can maneuver things around. They can still extend Taylor Moton if they want to open up salary cap space. There are still other ways to open up space for the Panthers heading into the season. So it makes sense to talk to these guys, bring them in. And if they're going to bring one in, I would prefer Ngakoue over Lawson. I still, though, am going to need to see it. Not going to get overly excited and hyped about this. Although I do think one of them, really concerned just what he's going to give them this year, having missed so much of the offseason and maybe the offseason entirely. Barno, don't know what his role would have been anyways, but he's not there. DJ Johnson didn't even practice on Wednesday. Not a great start to camp. Illness, it happens. Totally understandable, but still wait and see mode there, and always hated the pick. And I know a lot of y'all weren't a fan of that pick either. Getting another veteran would make sense for the Panthers. We'll see who it is. And if they do that, and they still have plenty of time in August, and once the roster cut down day comes, they can go to the waiver wire and find somebody that they think fits them and can help them out this season. Someone who they believe fit them and can help them out this season, Xavier Legette, who they traded up in the first round to draft out of South Carolina. He and another Gamecock, J.C. Horn, spoke to the media on Wednesday about day one of practice. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because of eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. For all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. The Carolina Panthers love themselves some South Carolina Gamecocks. We talk, it seems like every day, about whether Stephon Gilmore, the hometown boy, is going to come back home one more time and play for the Panthers. Jadeveon Clowney obviously is here. J.C. Horn is here. DJ Woonem, another Gamecock, and Xavier Legette, the Carolina Panthers took in the first round back earlier this year in the NFL draft, and had a nice moment with the fan who was wearing his South Carolina jersey, his number 17, which he'll don here in Carolina. We're in the black and processed blue, so cool to see that. Xavier, though, was pretty hard on himself after one day of practice. Said he started slow for him, wasn't his best, didn't feel like he had the attention to detail, needs to take more time to dive into the playbook, didn't have any catches, and didn't get open. And that's not what you want to hear, folks. That's not what you want to hear, is that didn't have any catches and I had a problem getting open. But again, it's day one and you're a rookie. I don't think anyone's coming in here. Let me hold off. Let me not say anyone. Let me not say that, because I'm sure there are plenty of people who are expecting instant production out of Xavier Legette here in Carolina. I'm not one of them. I'm going to be patient. I'm looking at Deontay Johnson, who Dave Canales said again, like, that is our guy. That's our number one target. And he talked about Adam Thielen. We're going to move him around. Those guys, they're our dudes. And I'm open to whenever Xavier Legette is ready. Whenever he's ready, we'll get him in there. But we're trying to run the ball, get it to Deontay, get the ball to Adam Thielen. That's the game plan right now. And when the rook's ready, we'll incorporate him and we won't set any limits. So understand that. I know people are ready to see it. I'm ready to see it as well, of course. I got to talk about it every day. I need this team to be good. I'm tired of it being bad. So, yes, I want to see it. Let's not go overboard too yet so much. I know I'm talking to some people individually. Don't know who you are. But I know I'm talking to somebody right now. So let's take a deep breath and it'll be okay. But not having any catches, not getting open, not the best first day. But I do like that he has the self-awareness to say that he needs to take more time diving into the playbook and that he needs to pay more attention to detail, that he can be self-critical. He doesn't even need the coach to do it. Doesn't need his teammates to do it. He is looking at himself saying, I have to be better if I'm going to make an impact on this team. And I love that. That speaks exactly to what Dan Morgan was talking about the kind of personalities and characters that he wanted to bring in here this offseason and has brought here. Also, Bryce Young, we know they had a throwing session in California. Xavier Legette apparently spent a week out there with Bryce. Felt like they got their timing down. Now, that's a little bit different than once game speed happens, but nice to know that those guys spent time, and it's something that everyone does. It's pretty much overblown. All these teams have their quarterbacks and receivers get together. The hamstring situation that held him out back during OTA's mandatory minicamp, he's 100% back, so no concern there. Also, when it comes to workouts, worked out with Deebo Samuel, another Gamecock, Paris Campbell this offseason, Isaiah Hodgins, and Ricky Pearsall, the rookie out of Florida playing there for the San Francisco 49ers, who may have a big role if his teammate Brandon Ayuk decides to come to Carolina, which I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But Xavier Legette, not the best day, but aware of it. Knows he's got to get better, and that's a good thing. As far as JC Horn, he's back healthy. That's good. And fingers crossed, pray to whatever gods, whatever idols you need to make sure he's healthy this season, because the Panthers need to be healthy, and he needs to be healthy as well. He's talking about he's not really concerned about what I have to say, what anyone else in the media has to say, what you have to say. He's only concerned about himself and what his goals are, and he is focused on that, and he wants to prove to himself that he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And I believe, which doesn't matter to him, I believe that he is. The only problem is he has not been out there. And I hate that for him and for the team and for everyone who loves the team, that he has not been out there to show the gifts that God has blessed him with on Sundays and, on Thursdays and Saturdays occasionally and all that every damn day, apparently, with the NFL. So I hate that for him. And I'm hoping that he can be healthy, can really show that, but that he's focused on proving that to himself. Interesting thing, I was wondering about this with training camp being here in Charlotte. Were they going home or were they staying at a hotel somewhere? They're staying at the Residence Inn. Now, you should know the Residence Inn's right there by the stadium. Do not go to the Residence Inn and bother these guys. Don't do it. When he said that where they were staying, I was like, oh my God, why would you say that? Because now and maybe people already knew. Maybe it's just not some secret. Don't go to the Residence Inn and bother these guys. Just wait for training camp and go out there and say what's up. And you got plenty of opportunities back together Saturday. Also with Fan Fest. Don't go camping at the Residence Inn now. Apparently, if you were year 4 or younger, you have to stay at the hotel, where they can still do the whole camaraderie thing, they haven't played a lot of ping pong just yet, as a lot of the guys like Burns and Lou who are no longer here. You can tell JC is like really missing his guys. They're still doing all that team building, bonding kind of stuff at the Residence Inn right by the stadium while all the vets get to go home. So I was curious about that. Good to know that there's, if it matters, that there's that still that kind of aspect they would have at Spartanburg, which is still different, of course, being here in the city. He's having to wear a Guardian cap since because he has an older helmet. We're seeing that with a couple of guys. That's been something that a lot of offensive linemen have done, even with the newer helmets. Peter King, who used to be a reporter, great one, he reported a lot about all of that and the safety aspects of the NFL is trying to incorporate, especially in this time of the year. He was asked about a contract too, which I found interesting. I think it was Joe Person at The Athletic who asked about that. And JC just said he's going to leave it to his agent and to the organization. He's not focused on a contract. He's focused on being available and hasn't even thought about an extension. And good. You shouldn't be thinking about an extension when you miss as much time as you have. You're focused on the right things, which is getting out there and being healthy on the field. He did say he's changed up the way he goes about his offseason. Last year, he hired a chef. He still has that same chef around. He tried to drop a few pounds, and he stayed in the weight room this offseason opposed to doing the skill position work. He's talked about he'll work on that crap when he's out here, and I'm sure he does still do that, but mainly focused on the weight room and his body more so than his craft, which, yes, he's concerned about, but that's what practice time is for. That's what this time of the year is for, and we know he can play. We just need him to be out there. And he talked about he feels like he's on a new team with all the losses of all their defensive leaders. So it'll be curious to see how that defense comes together. Now, Shaq Thompson says he believes they've come together so fast. They've had some period of time off. Now they're back together, and they're also not always together, and they weren't always together in the first place during the mandatory or the voluntary portion of the offseason anyways. But the most important thing that JC did say is that he's 30-2 right now in the EA college football. So go get him online, folks, and see if you can take him down. I still need to get the game, and I can't believe I don't have it yet. PS5s are so expensive. Why are they so expensive? All right. That's gonna wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, because tomorrow the weekly Friday mailbag is back. So either at me or DM me right now at Julian Council to get your questions in. Do it by Thursday afternoon, because after that, show's recorded. I ain't waiting for you. So give me those questions right now. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I will talk to y'all on Friday.